The Heart of Emberfall, the town of Emberfall, was a place of secrets and shadows, nestled deep within the Ashenwood Forest. For generations, its people had lived quietly, their lives shaped by the dense woods that surrounded them and the towering mountains that loomed on the horizon. But beneath the surface of this sleepy village, there was a darkness, a curse that had been passed down through the ages, whispered about in hushed tones and feared by all who knew of it. At the heart of Emberfall stood an ancient manor, its stone walls covered in ivy, its windows dark and uninviting. The manor was known as the Hollow Keep, and it had stood in the center of town for as long as anyone could remember. It was a place of power, where the lords of Emberfall had ruled for centuries. But it was also a place of tragedy, for every lord who had ever ruled from the Hollow Keep had met a terrible end. The current lord of Emberfall, Lord Aldrich, was no exception. A stern and brooding man, he had inherited the curse along with the title of Lord of Emberfall. He had tried to break it as his ancestors had before him, but the curse was unrelenting, an ancient force that defied all attempts to defeat it. And now, as the years passed and his strength waned, Lord Aldrich knew that his time was running out. It was on a cold, moonless night that a traveller arrived in Emberfall. He was a tall, lean man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see through the fog and mist that clung to the town. His name was Elias, and he had come to Emberfall with a purpose, one that he had kept secret from all but himself. Elias was a hunter of curses, a man who had dedicated his life to seeking out the dark forces that plagued the world and destroying them. He had heard of the curse of Emberfall, and he had come to put an end to it once and for all. But as he stepped into the town, he could feel the weight of the curse pressing down on him, a heavy, suffocating presence that seemed to seep into his bones. The streets of Emberfall were deserted, the houses dark and silent. The only sound was the distant howl of the wind as it whipped through the trees. Elias pulled his cloak tighter around him and made his way to the inn, a small, shabby building on the edge of town. The innkeeper, a wiry man with a nervous twitch, greeted him with a wary eye. "You're not from around here," the innkeeper said, his voice low and cautious. Elias nodded. "I'm a traveller, passing through. I heard there was work to be found in Emberfall." The innkeeper's eyes flicked to the door, as if he expected someone to burst in at any moment. "There's always work to be done here," he muttered, "but it's not the kind of work most folks are looking for." Elias smiled faintly. "I'm not like most folks." The innkeeper studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Aye, I can see that. Well, if you're looking for work, you should speak with Lord Aldrich at the Hollow Keep. But be warned, this town has a darkness about it, and those who meddle with it often find themselves in over their heads." "I'll keep that in mind," Elias said. He took a room at the inn for the night, but sleep did not come easily. The air in Emberfall was thick with tension, and the silence of the town was oppressive. Elias lay awake in the dark, listening to the wind howl outside, his mind turning over the stories he had heard about the curse of Emberfall. The curse, they said, was older than the town itself. It had been placed upon the land by a powerful sorcerer, a man whose name had long been forgotten. The sorcerer had been wronged by the people of Emberfall, and in his rage he had vowed to destroy them. He had cast a spell upon the town, a curse that would bring ruin to all who lived there. Over the centuries, The curse had taken many forms. It had brought famine and disease, war and bloodshed. It had driven men mad, caused women to wither and die, and left children orphaned and alone. But the worst of the curse was the madness that claimed the lords of Emberfall. Each one, in turn, had succumbed to it, driven to despair and violence by the dark forces that haunted the Hollow Keep. Elias had faced curses before, but this one was different. It was ancient, powerful, and deeply rooted in the land. It would not be easy to break, but Elias was determined. He had spent years honing his skills, learning the ways of magic and the arcane. He had faced demons, spirits, and monsters, and he had survived. He would survive this too. The next morning, Elias set out for the Hollow Keep. The manor loomed over the town, its dark stone walls casting long shadows across the ground. As he approached, he could feel the curse growing stronger, a palpable presence that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. The gates of the Hollow Keep were guarded by two men, both of whom eyed Elias with suspicion as he approached. "What business do you have here?" one of them demanded. "I've come to see Lord Aldrich," Elias replied. "I hear he's in need of help." The guard exchanged a glance, then nodded. "Wait here." One of them disappeared inside the manor, leaving Elias standing at the gates. He could feel the weight of the curse pressing down on him, and he took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. After a few minutes, the guard returned. "Lord Aldrich will see you. Follow me." Elias was led through the gates and into the manor. The interior was dark and cold, the walls lined with ancient tapestries and faded portraits of long-dead lords. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and Elias could hear the faint whisper of voices echoing through the halls. They were led to the great hall, where Lord Aldrich sat upon a high-backed chair, his face hidden in the shadows. He was a tall man, with broad shoulders and a thick beard that was shot through with grey. His eyes were dark and piercing, and there was a weariness in his expression that spoke of years of suffering. "You are the traveller who seeks to help me," Lord Aldrich said, his voice deep and gravelly. "I am," Elias replied. "I am a hunter of curses. I have come to rid Emberfall of the darkness that plagues it." Lord Aldrich studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. I will tell you what I know, though I fear it will do little to help you." He gestured for Elias to sit, and the hunter took a seat across from him. "The curse," Lord Aldrich began, "has been with my family for generations. It began with my ancestor, Lord Aemon, who wronged a powerful sorcerer. The details of their conflict have been lost to time, but the sorcerer's curse has remained. Every lord of Emberfall has been claimed by it, driven mad by the darkness that dwells within the Hollow Keep." Elias nodded. "I have heard the stories, but curses can be broken, Lord Aldrich. There is always a way." Lord Aldrich shook his head. "I have tried. I have consulted with scholars, priests, and magicians. I have searched for the sorcerer's name, for any clue that might lead to the curse's undoing, but all my efforts have been in vain. The curse is too powerful, too deeply rooted in the land." "Perhaps," Elias said, "but I have faced curses before, and I have broken them. I will do the same here." Lord Aldrich looked at him with a mixture of hope and despair. "If you can, then you will be a hero in Emberfall. but I fear that you will only meet the same fate as those who came before you." Elias stood. "Let me begin my work. I will need access to the hollow keep and any records or artifacts related to the curse." Lord Aldrich nodded. "You shall have whatever you need. But be careful, Elias. The darkness in this place is not like anything you have ever faced before." Elias left the great hall and began his search. The hollow keep was a labyrinth of rooms and corridors, each one filled with ancient relics and forgotten memories. He spent hours poring over old tomes and scrolls, searching for any clue that might lead him to the source of the curse. But the more he searched, the more he realized that the curse was not just a spell. It was a living thing, a malevolent force that had taken root in the land and the people of Emberfall. It fed on their fear, their despair, and their suffering, growing stronger with each passing year. As the days passed, Elias felt the weight of the curse pressing down on him. He had faced dark magic before, but this was different. This curse was ancient, powerful, and relentless. It seeped into his thoughts, filling his dreams with the nightmares of death and destruction. One night, as he was studying an old map of Emberfall, he heard a soft knock at his door. He opened it to find a young woman standing there, her face pale and drawn. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "I need your help." Elias recognized her as one of the servants of the manor, a quiet girl who kept to herself. "What is it?" he asked. "It's my brother," she said. "He's been taken the Forgotten Kingdom long ago, in a time when magic still flowed freely through the world. There was a kingdom that thrived in a hidden valley, surrounded by towering mountains and ancient forests. This was the kingdom of Arlindor, a land of peace and prosperity, ruled by wise and just kings. The people of Arlindor lived in harmony with nature and with each other, and the kingdom flourished for centuries, untouched by war or famine. But all that changed when the last king of Arlindor, King Varlan, ascended to the throne. King Varlan was a man of great ambition, and he dreamed of expanding his kingdom beyond the valley that had sheltered his ancestors for generations. He sought to conquer the lands beyond the mountains, to build an empire that would rival any other. To achieve this, he turned to the ancient magic that lay dormant in the heart of Arlindor, a magic that had been kept secret and protected for centuries. The magic was known as the Heart of Arlindor, a powerful artifact that had been created by the kingdom's founders. It was said that the heart contained the essence of the land itself, a source of immense power that could shape the world and bend it to the will of its wielder. The heart had been kept hidden in the deepest chamber of the royal palace, guarded by powerful wards and only accessible to the king. Varlan, driven by his desire for power, ignored the warnings of his advisors and the ancient prophecies that foretold the consequences of tampering with the heart. He broke the wards and seized the artifact, using its power to summon armies of stone and steel, to command the elements and reshape the land. For a time it seemed as though his dreams of conquest would come true. But the heart of Arlindor was not meant to be wielded by one man alone. The magic that it contained was too vast, too wild, and it began to consume Velen, twisting his mind and corrupting his soul. The more he used the heart's power, the more unstable it became, until finally it unleashed a cataclysm that tore the kingdom apart. In a single night, Arlindor was swallowed by the earth. The mountains around the valley crumbled, the forests withered, and the rivers ran dry. The royal palace was buried beneath tons of stone, and the heart of Arlindor was lost. The kingdom that had once been a beacon of peace and prosperity was erased from the world, and its name was forgotten by all but a few. Centuries passed, and the world moved on. The story of Arlindor became little more than a legend, a tale told by bards and whispered by the fire. Few believed that the kingdom had ever truly existed, and fewer still dared to search for it. The valley where Arlindor had once stood became a desolate wasteland, known as the Black Reach, a place where no one ventured willingly. But there were some who still sought the power of the heart of Arlindor, believing that it could be found and harnessed once again. Among them was a young woman named Elara, a scholar and adventurer who had spent her life searching for the lost kingdom. Elara was not like the other treasure hunters who sought the heart for its power or wealth. She was driven by a deep sense of curiosity, a desire to uncover the truth about the world and its history. From a young age, she had been fascinated by the stories of Arlindor, and she had dedicated herself to finding the kingdom and learning its secrets. Her search had led her to the Black Reach, a place of barren hills and jagged rocks, where the wind howled through the ruins of forgotten cities. She had spent months exploring the desolate landscape, following every lead and clue. But the heart of Arlindor remained elusive. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the Black Reach, Elara stood on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the ruins of what had once been a great city. She had been searching for so long, and she was beginning to wonder if the stories of Arlindor were nothing more than myth. As she stood there, lost in thought, she felt a faint tremor beneath her feet. At first, she thought it was just the wind playing tricks on her, but then the ground shook again, more forcefully this time. She took a step back, her heart racing, and watched in astonishment as the ground below her began to crack and shift. Suddenly, the earth gave way, and Elara fell into the darkness below. When Elara awoke, she found herself lying on a cold, hard surface, her body aching from the fall. She groaned and pushed herself up, blinking against the darkness that surrounded her. It took her a moment to realize where she was. She had fallen into a cavern, deep beneath the Black Reach. The air was damp and stale, and the only light came from the faint glow of crystals embedded in the walls. Elara's first instinct was to climb back to the surface, but as she looked around, she noticed something that made her pause. The cavern was not natural. It had been carved by human hands. The walls were smooth and lined with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of people and animals, battles and celebrations. In the center of the cairn stood a massive stone door, its surface covered in runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Elara's heart skipped a beat. She had found it. She had found the entrance to the lost kingdom of Arlindor. She approached the door slowly, her fingers tracing the ancient runes. They were written in a language she did not recognize, but she could feel the power emanating from them. This was no ordinary door. It was a seal, designed to keep something out, or perhaps to keep something in. For a moment, Elara hesitated. She had come so far, but she knew that whatever lay beyond that door was dangerous. The stories of Arlindor had warned of the heart's power, of the destruction it had wrought. But she could not turn back now, not when she was so close to the truth. Taking a deep breath, Elara pressed her hand against the door. The runes flared with light, and she felt a surge of energy pass through her. The ground shook once more, and with a low rumble, the door began to open. Beyond the door was a long, narrow tunnel, leading deeper into the earth. Elara stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The air grew colder as she descended, and the light from the crystals grew dimmer. But she pressed on, driven by her desire to uncover the secrets of Arlindor. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she emerged into a vast chamber, the likes of which she had never seen before. The chamber was enormous, its ceiling stretching high above her, supported by massive stone pillars. The walls were covered in more carvings depicting the history of Arlindor, the rise of the kingdom, its golden age, and finally its fall. But it was not the carvings that drew Elara's attention. It was what lay at the center of the chamber. There, on a pedestal of black stone, sat the heart of Arlindor. The artifact was a large, multifaceted crystal, glowing with an inner light that shifted and pulsed like a living thing. It was beautiful, but there was something unsettling about it as well. A sense of immense power, barely contained. Elara could feel the energy radiating from the heart, filling the chamber with a palpable tension. She approached the pedestal slowly, her eyes fixed on the heart. She had found it. After all these years, she had finally found it. But as she drew closer, she felt a growing sense of unease. The stories of Arlindor had spoken of the heart's power, of how it had corrupted King Valen and brought about the kingdom's destruction. What if the heart was still dangerous? What if it still held the same dark power that had consumed Valen? Elara hesitated, her hand hovering over the crystal. She could feel its pull, its promise of knowledge and power. But she knew that such power came at a price that Arlindor had paid dearly. Before she could make a decision, a voice echoed through the chamber. "You have come far, Elara of the North." Elara spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. The chamber was empty. There was no one else here. And yet, the voice had been clear, as if someone had spoken directly into her mind. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "I am the guardian of the heart," the voice replied. "I have watched over it for centuries, waiting for the one who would come to claim it." Elara felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you want from me?" "The heart is a powerful artifact," the voice said. "It has the power to reshape the world, to bend it to your will. But such power comes with great responsibility. You must decide what you will do with it, whether you will use it for good or for evil." Elara looked at the heart, its light casting eerie shadows on the walls. She could feel its power, its potential, but she could also feel the darkness that lay within it. The same darkness that had consumed Valen and destroyed Arlindor. "I don't want power," she said quietly. "I just want to understand." The voice was silent for a moment, and then it spoke again, softer this time. "Understanding is the first step, Elara. But knowledge alone is not enough. You must also have the wisdom to use it wisely."